The summer break is coming to an end. The voices have finally put the era of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers behind them. It is with great optimism and glee that they look forward to this new era of Power Rangers Zeo, or at least three of them are. Ben, however, has lost track of time.
That's cool to hear. It's all been go here since everyone got back yesterday.
Yeah, it gets to be that way around here too. It's like the first day on campus when everyone is moving into dorms, only way more, dare I say, moody.
Maybe in your dimension. Here, it was just Red showing up at the break of dawn and got all of her stuff in a near military position, only for Brian to pay no attention whatsoever and block her car in with his van.
From what I know of your Sasha, that can't have ended well.
Oh, you have no idea. When asked to move, rather than walk to his van, get in it, and, reverse out of the way, Brian decided this would be an excellent time to test what he has dubbed a cargo transporter, and he tried to beam his van inside the lab.
Wait, I thought you said last month that you'd all put a lid on the transporter developments after, since I was brought there by the transporter incident.
Oh, we did, but apparently Brian designed this at the same time as the personnel transporter. And to cut a long story short, there is now a 2018 Ford Transit van, half in the wall of the lab and half in the septic tank.
Aren't those on opposite sides of the building?
Yup.
Oh dear.
And then Mike showed up and things got really weird. He walked in and...
There you are. We've been looking for you everywhere. We're supposed to be recording.
Hello, other me.
Ben, what's going on?
Well, Red, we just...
I'm sorry. Did you just call me Red?
Yeah, it's a helpful shorthand that the voices and I from my dimension developed when we got to the cross-dimensional communications. Whenever two of the same person are in the same call, we use their ranger color to...
I wasn't talking to you.
Hold on, Red.
Well, that could have gone better.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to call you back.
Hey, Brian, you in here?
Yeah, over here by the whiteboard. What's up?
Not much. Just wanted to check in, see if you made any progress on getting the van out of the septic tank yet.
Well, I started working on an idea whereby I theoretically...
What is... This was... the situation... And her... And that with the thing and the freaking...
Okay, so... Hello, Sasha.
Don't you hello Sasha me, Brian. Did you or did you not know that Ben has been talking to the other me? The me that's not me. The other me from the other life, from the other place.
Yeah, they've been talking for months, pretty much ever since you explained to Ben how to operate the equipment in the battle bridge. He said it finally clicked for him once you told him it was based on the technology other Sasha had in her little base in the caves.
It's not a bridge, nor is it for battle. It's a totally...
They've become friends?
Yeah, they became good friends right after the kidnapping, and he realized she wasn't you. Like, even before we sent her back.
So, she drugged him. Kidnapped him. And now they're friends?
Look, we didn't get it at first either. But then he explained it. And in his own weird, Ben kind of way, makes sense.
Sasha,
So let me see if I got this. You've been talking to the other me for 6 months?
Yep.
And Mike and Brian knew about it?
Yep.
And you didn't think I could have at least gotten a heads up?
What about? It's not like I told either of them. She's my friend.
Except Mike and Brian clearly know you've been talking to her, but you didn't think to tell me that you've had this weird friendship with a different version of me to ask me how I feel about her?
She's my friend. I don't tell you who you can be friends with.
Ugh, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that you've been talking to a different version of me for months. And you didn't tell me about it. You didn't say, hey, Sasha, by the way, the other Sasha's pretty cool. We've been chatting and I thought you should know.
Ask yourself a question. Would you be saying this if it was any other version of you? Or are you just doing this because it's the version of you that was here?
Well...
Hey, look. We can all stand to calm down here.
Sasha, I get it. Like 100% I get it. This whole thing has sucked so hard for you. You were living a different life for 6 months. You were married. No one in that dimension knew you were out of place.
Exactly.
But have you ever thought about the other side of the coin? How the other you got home and realized no one knew she was gone? How is that going to make her distrust her so-called friends? Her husband had no idea you were not his wife.
Wait, really?
Yup. Turns out not one of them noticed anything out of place.
Like, they had no idea at all.
Not one.
I didn't.
How could you? Anytime this subject comes up, you shut the conversation down harder than a spirit Halloween on November 1st. You never want to talk about it.
Well, there's a reason for that.
The truth is, we don't know how many Sashas got shunted around when that explosion happened. For all we know, every Sasha got swapped with another. Statistically, the fact that we got you back is... carry the one.
Incalculable. Got it.
Wow, that's harsh. I forgot about them. How could they not have noticed? I literally couldn't program a pulsar array.
And she's super cool if you get to know her. So yes, Sasha, I'm going to keep talking to her. But I think it's about time you talk about it. To me, to us, anyone.
And no, we're here to support you in any way we can.
Unless you need to borrow my van. That's kind of out of the question right now.
I'm sorry, Ben. You're right. I've been avoiding it, and I thought if I just didn't think about it, it would go away. Maybe one day I'll be ready to have a real conversation with the other me.
Don't be sorry. Just try and get better.
Deal.
All right, so are we good to go record the first episode of Zeo then?
Yeah, I think I'm good. Ready when you guys are.
All right, let's get going.
And just think, we were all really looking forward to this season. Hope this isn't a portent for the future.
To another turbulent season of Voices from the Grid, a show where grown adults with far too much time on their hands complain about a children's show. I am the one of your fabulous hosts, the one, the only, the ever snarky, and the eternal Red Ranger, Sasha Kaplan. And today, we are joined together in the same room for the first time ever.
Oh my god, right?
Well, it's not the first time ever. It's the first time we're recording an episode.
For our listeners, it is the first time ever.
Well, no,
together in the.
You did put the
I said in the same room.
I can see everybody's legs. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Semantics. Anyway, we
Brian
are
doesn't
in.
sound like he's talking through a tin can.
And you can't blame tech problems now. But anyway, as you guys.
Just blame the cider we've been drinking.
This is a family-friendly show. Let's remember that. But I am joined today, as we all record together in the same room for the first time ever, by the newly reminted, and pun intended...
Here we go, colours.
The newly reminted, pun intended, Green Ranger, Ben Taylor.
Thank you very much. It's me, ya boy.
And I'm joined by the newly redubbed, because he apparently loves this color far much more than I do, our newly redubbed Pink Ranger, Brian Massey.
Wait, why do I gotta be pink? What?
Because you turned everybody else's clothes pink. It's called revenge.
I was pink. I was
Nothing
pink for the entire season.
I was comfortable being blue at this point.
Too late, no take backsies. And, oh, that's right. And our new Blue Ranger this season is last and certainly not least, Michael Lindenbaum.
Hey, remember that time we actually did a panel at a convention that's up on the website too?
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right.
Hi, how's it going?
So wait, I'm green,
Yes.
you're still red.
Yep.
Brian is pink,
I'm
and Mike is blue.
Because I just want to have fun.
And I have
And you
never
have a
actually
problem with
seen him.
doors.
I've never actually seen him use one, so who knows?
Oh my god.
Today,
Conspiracies.
today we are opening the DVD case, or the streaming platform of YouTube, on a brand new season of Power Rangers. Today we are recording Power Rangers Zeo and the first 2 episodes, and we get, for the first time ever, not only completely new powers, but also new suits and sort of a kind of a new revitalization a little bit of the formula.
there is pain involved with said revitalization.
I don't know, man. Like, I will concede that a Zeo Beginning. I
know Kung Fu.
A Zeo Beginning definitely
Because Neo-Plutonium.
Yeah, it definitely over promises so that the rest of the season can under deliver.
Save it for the end of season
Alright,
recording.
yeah.
But today we start with the first things, which is that our Rangers are now back to their adult forms. Finally.
Yes.
Thank God.
And the command center is just casually reconstituting itself. Nothing major.
Well, there's a bit before that, right?
Yeah.
We have, as I will always point out, the hero of the franchise, Adam Park, is the only Power Ranger that isn't just sitting in the ruins of the command center feeling sorry for himself. He's the one that actually sees the Zeo Crystal.
Yes, the elusive Zeo Crystal. And thank you, Brian, for the sound effect that they actually make, which I thought was a nice touch, right? As he's like digging, and then the other Rangers joining him, we hear like the Zeo, like a flash. Brian, do it again. Zeo!
But like, I got a question for you real fast, by the way. Is that something that they can hear, or is that just for us?
I do not think it is diagenic.
Okay.
But even before that, the show already spoiled a bunch of stuff for us because they played the brand new intro right away.
Yeah.
Oh,
And you get the suits and the Zords and the villains, and it's like, oh man. Okay.
So I guess if that's the case, then let's ask the first question. What do we think of the new Zeo suits?
Of the suits?
Just the suits.
I mean, technically, we don't see that till part 2.
We've seen them. They
They were in the intro.
They're in the intro.
You're the one that pointed that out, Mike. You can't actually us now.
Oh boy.
Well,
Welcome to season 4, everybody.
Did we mention that we've been drinking cider?
No, but you just did.
Ben already mentioned in the beginning.
Anyway,
Clearly, I'm the only adult in the room.
I kind of dig them. I like the circuitry on them. I will say that the like basic like preschool shapes on the helmets are kind of weird, but like I'm also kind of okay with that too.
Although it took a while, and I think it was a conversation between Ben and I. We were talking about the helmets and like Ranger Zeo 1.
no, it was when we first recorded this episode. We're about to throw Mike under the bus here. Because as you will hear over the course of the season, we've had to re-record a bunch of episodes through the season because Mike decided to not back up a bunch of files, and decided to just yeet them into ether. This
Not
being one
exactly
of them.
that way, but
This being one of those episodes, which
It was an unfortunate computer-related accident.
although I will say it allowed us to do the first episode in person. So thank you, Mike.
originally,
Blessing
when
in
we-
disguise.
When we recorded this episode, y'all were like, well, they're just throwaway shapes. Just like, no, they're not. Zeo Ranger 1 is a circle, it has one side. Zeo Ranger 2 has two lines. Zeo Ranger 3 has a triangle. Zeo Ranger 4 is a square. Zeo Ranger 5 is a 5-pointed star.
Yeah,
That's so clever. I'm glad that the little kids watching this in kindergarten got that.
Yeah. I'm not
Yeah.
saying they're as iconic as like Tyrannosaurus and Mastodon.
Yeah.
But there is a reason behind the shapes.
Did you guys feel weird about the fact that the lips aren't silver now, or no?
I didn't even notice until you pointed it out.
Really?
So,
Yeah. Like
yeah.
a full color and then like the black visor, whatever.
Like,
But to kind
I
of
think these might be my least favorite Ranger suits.
Yeah.
I think the suits overall, it's definitely. I wish they had used the Die Ranger suits. I will say that because I've always been a fan of the Die Ranger suits. But seeing these ones, I do like the layout of the outfit overall. The helmets though kind of throw them off a tad bit. But overall,
I don't think the Die Ranger suits would have worked for Zeo.
No. I'm not saying it would have worked for Zeo, but like when they shifted over to the Thunder Megazords and stuff like that, I would have loved to have seen that because the only suit
But
that
we're talking about Zeo right now.
Yeah, I know.
Sure.
I was using it as a comparison.
Oh, okay.
But because we are doing this first actual official changeover, with new Zords and new powers and stuff like that.
So, I mean, the closest we got to another suit before this was the ninja suits, right?
Yeah.
And the glitter armor.
And,
we don't talk about that.
and technically the Alien Rangers as well.
Yeah, they weren't a new suit for our Rangers. They were
Not
their
for
own
our
set of
Rangers specific, but for the show itself.
I just thought it was hilarious that like they took a ninja suit and was like, "Yep, that's an alien."
So the
Have fun.
one thing that I think we discussed last season was the fact that the season 3 got us sort of prepared for the changes we were going to see this season, right? In terms of the Ranger structure, Rangers leaving, in terms of new suits, and all of that jazz. But I guess I want to start at the very beginning of this episode, which is the fact that it starts with Tommy's narration, summarizing the events that happened at the end of season 3. And based on the facial reactions that our listeners cannot see, I already see some interesting opinions. What do you guys think of this choice for an introduction?
I mean, I guess you have to have Tommy, the leader of the team, being the one doing the monologue because, I mean, I like the fact that they're literally picking up where they left off.
Sure.
And anybody, and because Brian and I were talking about this when we rewatched the episode together, we made a note of that, it's been a few months since you had seen the end of season 3 to now. So having that kind of like a quick, hey, here's what happened real quick was nice. Because the monologue wasn't necessary. The way the monologue was delivered kind of made it haphazard.
I just wish that they had made a creative choice where they're just because like they do it for like 5 minutes and then like not at all. And I get why they did that, but I just think it would have been so much more interesting if they had just stuck with that choice and been like, no, the entire episode is going to be narrated by Tommy. Like,
I mean, like literally,
I would have stabbed myself.
Right?
So because we were watching on YouTube and I was able to do like the Chromecast, I was watching the timer for the episode as it was going.
Yeah.
And literally, like the first 4 minutes of the episode is intro, followed by the monologue.
Because we really
like the
need
first,
more
it's really so the first 4 maybe 5 minutes of the episode is literally intro into Tommy's monologue of a recap.
Yeah.
And I don't think you needed like almost 5 minutes worth of recap.
Here's the thing. I don't think the contents of the monologue was bad.
Delivery?
I think the delivery was off.
Yes.
What you needed was like it probably couldn't be Zordon because that gave away the fact that Zordon had survived.
What about Billy?
I think it should have been Billy.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because JDF, he plays it like he's trying to do some kind of Hamlet monologue talking about to be or not to be. That is the question, whether it's nobler than the mind to suffer things now is of outrageous fortune. Wow. Take it at the end of the
It's Hamlet's soliloquy, yes.
I'll stop. But he's treating it like he's auditioning for the Royal Shakespeare Company.
How do you know he wasn't?
Because
He's a Power Ranger?
I nearly said something that was non-PG then. Because he's bad.
Yeah. All right, well, I guess that answers that question. So they find the Zeo crystal, right? And then... Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
And, you know, the Earth...
Are you going to do that every time we say the word Zeo crystal? All right, I'm turning your microphone off now.
Hey, Ben,
stopping.
if you need to, he is throwing distance. You can throw something at him.
Can I throw you at it?
You don't have
I'm not in reach distance. but-
Like I said, I'm the only adult in the room.
Yeah.
And so on that note, the ground, they sort of end up sticking to the ground, right? All
Yeah, they
six.
pick up the
Yeah.
Zeo crystal, and for some reason that magnetizes their feet to some stone.
Well, there's a
now-
very simple explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Billy was also going like, "Oh, you shouldn't be holding the crystals because it could be like some radiation or whatever," which
It
is
could be
funny.
poisonous
Which
or
is
something.
funny because if you go back to the Zeo quests, the kids are literally holding on to
Right,
the.
But they were holding-
what he says is you don't know how the implosion damaged it.
Right,
yeah.
fair enough.
But
Which
also,
is quite coincidental, as we will see at the end of the season. That's why Billy leaves.
Yeah.
but also they weren't holding the full Zeo crystal. Remember, it was only a fragment of it. And what's interesting is when the Zeo crystals, you know, were being formed, they had each part of the crystal had the coinciding shape to their helmets.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they end up in a chamber of some kind. They walk through some goop and to this shock and amazement.
Can we talk about just a second? The fact that when Tommy puts his hand through the portal and pulls it out, it's all covered in goop and slime.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then when they walk through it, they're perfectly fine.
Yeah. Oh, my
no,
God, that
not-
drove me crazy.
Not
I was
just
like,
that. But when Rocky's hesitating to go through it,
Yeah.
Billy reaches out and grabs him, pulls him through, and you don't see any goop on
There's
his
no-
arm or shirt as he pulls Rocky.
There's a very simple explanation.
I was fully expecting these guys to be covered in like Nickelodeon gack or something by the time that they got to the power chamber.
Yeah.
Because of what, like, but like, the way Tommy
Maybe
was
it's like
looking-
one of those Willy Wonka things where it's like they're on the boat and it's shooting the foam at them, and then they
No.
go through something and
No,
it's like,
stop rationalizing this.
Yeah.
It was just bad.
It was stupid.
I'd like to point out that we're basically like only like what 10 minutes into actual episode of the
There's like
Can we talk about something else real fast too? By the way, the fact that the command center didn't start rebuilding itself until after they were out of sight, almost like, "Ooh, I'll be sneaky." Like it's like,
Yeah.
like it had a mind of its. Like why?
the
What?
motherboard had to load properly.
Yeah, it's like no, I can't do it when you're watching. Like,
Well, wait,
or something.
doesn't the
he's that
command
one
center?
dude from Mystery Man.
Well, I guess the question is because I don't remember the exact line of events bit by bit, but does the Zeo crystal start rebuilding itself as the command centers are building itself, or does they happen one after?
So the
a
Zeo,
good question.
the Zeo crystal is whole.
yeah.
Right. Sorry. What I mean is like, does the command center start building itself back after they touch the Zeo crystal, or before?
Once they're underground.
Yeah, once
Yeah,
they're
so-
out of the line of sight, the command center starts rebuilding itself.
All right. So it needed time to load the proper,
Sure.
file or whatever.
Although
it had to connect to the internet.
Although,
and escape.
although, like I know we really joned on the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie that came out in '95, and the CGI of that movie, but the CGI of the command center rebuilding itself was probably just as bad.
It was-
One
looked
is a
like-
movie, the other's a TV show.
It wasn't even CGI. It was reverse footage of them like knocking over pieces of like a
model.
wall.
Yeah.
That was all it was.
It basically tried to put itself together like a 3D puzzle, which is honestly fine.
I was kind of it's okay, fine. We've seen weirder stuff happen in Power Rangers at this point, I guess.
Yep. So we are joined by a new character this season, a new ranger because Aisha unfortunately does not return, and we are introduced to Tanya Sloan. What are
Again.
you guys'? Yes, again, but now as an adult.
Yeah.
So, what are your first impressions of Tanya? And do you think she, like, what do you guys think about this entire situation? I know we talked about it a little bit last season, but we can rehash it for our listeners again.
Why isn't she freaking out over everything?
Yeah.
Like, literally.
So, funny story. When we started recording this the first time, Brian and Mike were like, she's alright. And I went on this huge rant about how she should be having culture shock.
Yeah.
And all of this. And now they're stealing my material.
You realize they did that just for that reaction, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I don't mean to ever put you in a conniption just for, like, the show me the funny, but, like, at the same time, like...
Good Yiddish
You
word.
don't have to try. I'm gonna talk about Tanya, because, oh my god.
Okay, let's not shout at the rest of us. Everybody can hear us.
I think the neighbors could hear us, too.
I almost want to concede my, like, thoughts of Tanya and just, Ben, please, the floor is yours.
No, go ahead.
Okay,
Steal more of my material.
I'm not stealing any of your material, sir.
That was Mike. Blame Mike.
But
I was the one teeing it up. I mean, come on. Ben and I have been podcasting long enough. He knows when I'm teeing him up.
Talk, dude. Damn.
I almost feel like as many problems seemingly present themselves, and like I get it because, you know, like the modus operandi of Power Rangers is that we are a very culturally appropriate, like we are a multicultural type of show, or like that's what they want to go on. Is, you know, we have people from all walks of life and like from different cultures and from different backgrounds and all this stuff, and I get that. That's really cool, and I applaud Power Rangers for doing that, even so far back as Mighty Morphin. But at the same time, how could the producers take a look at Tanya and her story and not go, hey, this might be a little problematic? Not even so much as her background, but like, how is she going to integrate with the other Rangers when she hasn't even gone to freaking like elementary and middle school?
Like, she literally aged 10 years.
Yeah, it's like...
That's not even the worst part.
Right.
When you say aged 10 years, it's not like she went from being 16 to 26. She went from being 6 to being 16.
Yeah.
She, over the course of about 3 minutes.
As a woman, just that thinking about that is a little traumatic, not gonna lie.
She went through puberty at hyperspeed, right? And
at ludicrous speed.
She's gone to plaid.
She's gone to plaid.
And on top of that, right, she's coming from a tribe in the African Serengeti, right, to 1994 Los Angeles.
96 or 7, actually, but still close.
Detailed.
You want to know some of the things that were invented around that time?
Have at it.
The internet. GPS. DVDs. Animal cloning.
I remember Dolly the Sheep, yeah.
Drones.
Tamagotchi.
This woman should have told them, gone, oh my god, shoes. Because she's never seen them before. Instead, she's acting like a floating head in a jar and a big robot with the UFO for a head is perfectly fine.
Well, we do know that she knew Zordon already, at least.
Sure.
See, it like appeared to her or something. I don't remember.
Okay, big floating head in the sky or something.
I blocked season 3 out of my memory.
Oh my
okay.
Tanya.
You have more?
When they were signing Ranger colors, she has the audacity to say, don't worry, Billy, I'll step aside. Like she has a choice.
So
She was never a Ranger.
So let's get to that moment. So the yada 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 Alpha and Zordon have a secret chamber in the basement. Whoop de freaking do. But we find out that there are 6 Rangers. Well, 5 Rangers and Tanya, but there are only 5 Zeo crystals. And Tanya's natural reaction is like, "Oh, I'm
not a problem."
Yeah,
because Tanya's not a Ranger.
So, but instead, what ends up happening is that Billy makes the choice to not be a Ranger because he thinks he can be more helpful as like a tech wizard or like, you know, a technical advisor.
The guy in the chair.
We already understand Ben's feelings on this very clearly. So Brian, Mike, what are your thoughts on the idea of Billy just sort of choosing to give up his powers? Because for me, that kind of hurts.
I in retrospect, yeah, I I kind of hate it. And I do have a question for the entire class as well. Because Billy straight up says, Tanya, I'm giving my Zeo crystal to you. Does that mean he would have been the Yellow Ranger here? Because Rocky gets the blue crystal.
No, Rocky would have been the Yellow Ranger.
Rocky would have been yellow, which is fine because, like, there's a precedent for Yellow Ranger powers to not have skirts, so it could be a dude or a chick or whatever. I'm not gonna, whatever. But, like, for Billy to just be like, I'm good.
Rocky would have rocked that skirt. Just would have pointed that out.
Girl. But no, it's just, it makes no sense, and it's like, it does hurt. Like, Billy's like, I'm not a Ranger anymore. Rewatching it 3 times at this point, I don't like it. I really wish he would have stayed as a Ranger. But I also get all the behind the scenes as well.
Yeah. I definitely think for Billy, like, it kind of, in a way, also takes a lot of onus off of Alpha, which is what I think was also Billy's plan. Because I think also, in a way, Billy has kind of seen his time come and go. And he wants to hand it off to somebody else. And because, remember, at the end of season 3, when Tanya arrives instead of Aisha... Zordon's like, oh, the prophecy has been fulfilled. What prophecy? So it's
the prophecy that went absolutely nowhere.
So maybe, like, that's something, like, again, behind the while the Zeo quest is happening, maybe Billy and Zordon's having that conversation.
Yeah, because Billy did stay behind, right? Yeah.
Well, that's because Billy was the first one to make himself into an adult, and then the other 5 had to go get the Zeo crystals.
That obviously caused problems for him later, which we will get to when we get to. But, I mean, I don't know.
Deep breaths.
Can we also talk about the fact that Rocky, Tommy, Adam, Kat, and Billy have known Tanya for a grand total of about 5 minutes at this point.
Yep.
And they just decide to go, yeah, cool, you're a Power Ranger now. There's no her having to prove she's trustworthy. There's no...
Well, Aisha sent her, so that, I guess, is good enough.
There's no Stone Canyon fight against Angel Grove. It takes, like, 3 episodes or whatever.
Earlier in season 3... Kat had infiltrated them by pretending to be their friend.
And being a literal cat.
It worked out in the end. I don't understand the problem that you're having, Ben.
Yeah, right after Kimberly nearly broke her neck.
Details! It's fine.
And Angel got captured, and... Yeah, fine.
It all worked out in the end.
My point being, and we're going to see this again next season in Turbo, Power Rangers has... After season 2 and season 3, where they actually did an effort to introduce the new Rangers before they took the powers.
Right.
Power Rangers gets this... it gets this habit of just being like, hey, this is the first episode someone's in. Now they're a Ranger. Like,
yeah.
It happens with TJ and Cassie. It happens... here, like, it's just like...
Well, the difference with TJ, at least, is that we actually see him do something that makes him worthy of becoming a Ranger. Yeah. Similar with I think with Cassie
I think all of them,
Ashley and Carlos. Yeah. They do something that makes the other Rangers go, we'll get there.
Oh, yes, we'll get to that.
So, meanwhile, I'm going to take us back to the moon for a second, because things are kind of getting funky on the moon, as Rita and Zed are celebrating the fact that they have effectively defeated the Power Rangers.
Yes.
They're in for an interesting little surprise, which is the arrival of this really terrifying looking, at least at the beginning, right? Machine Empire. What do you guys think of this introduction to the Machine Empire? Not how it's gonna pay off later, just from these 2 episodes. What is the impression that you get from the Machine Empire?
I love how it's Finster who's really the one that tips them off on who it is that's coming. Because like the last like almost 2 seasons, Finster was like very underutilized, and he's probably one of the better henchmen of the villains on Rita and Zed.
I believe he is her advisor on monster-related
affairs.
Affairs, yes.
Yes, but
yes, my queen.
What she's saying is, Chief Human Resources.
Yes. Yes. Mr. Human Resources. And the Human Resources manager has come out and said, yo, pack your stuff.
Talent acquisition specialist.
But anyways, the HR director, talent acquisition specialist, has come to the boss and has said, yo, pack your stuff. Let's get out of here and put up the for sale sign on the castle because we got to get out of here.
Can I say something, too, about, like, just the way that... And especially... I'm not going to talk about what happens later, but good lord. But with the Machine Empire... It's Finster, it's Rita, it's Zed, and it's also Master Vile that talk about, like, they talk up the Machine Empire so much without us seeing them. They're like, oh, they're even worse than us, and like, oh my god, they're, you know...
And Zordon adds more to it later on.
Yeah, they're like, oh, they're so evil, they're so bad, they're so evil, and it's like...
And then...
You know, like, when you do stuff like that, you set the bar so high that, like, there's gonna be eventual failure, I feel like.
We'll get to that when we record the finale.
Sure.
But yeah.
like...
No, but it's Brian has a point. You're talking about the first impression.
Yeah.
And...
Oh my god, they're so bad.
Zeo Beginning for the Machine Empire sets a benchmark, and it sets an expectation in the mind of the viewer.
Right.
Which... I think the commentary Brian is making is, even though we know what's going to happen, even if we didn't know what was going to happen, the benchmark that is set is almost impossible to live up to unless they're walking around Angel Grove randomly murdering people.
We can't have that. It's a kids' show.
That's my point.
Fair.
As for me, So I first watched Zeo when I was like 41 years old. Right. So my first thought was, wow, we've got someone with an actual army. This is going to be good.
Yep.
Nope.
Yep.
So I quite liked the initial introduction. I was like, oh, they've got fighters and they've got walkers and it's going to be a different kind of combat. And
full-scale invasion of Earth in Zeo.
Yeah.
Although one thing I do like that they do is that they don't make their first target be the Rangers. They actually make their first target be Rita and Zed.
Yeah, because they run them off, huh?
Yeah.
Which they succeed at.
Yeah.
Only room for one army on the moon, I guess.
And I do think that that's actually smart for introducing a new baddie for this series, because it's like, all right, we've seen Rita and Zed. Let's actually give them a reason to be scared to leave, and then actually attack them to force them to leave. So it's like, I thought that was at least pretty good.
I'm almost curious if when they were taking a look at O-Ranger to adapt this, because, and I'm not going to spend too much time on comparing the two, but you watch the first two episodes of Choriki Sentai O-Ranger, and the Baranoia, that's their Japanese name, the Baranoia, they are a legitimate threat. They are scary as hell. The Cogs, like, they are... I legitimately had a nightmare about them because, like, they are, like, fast and they are brutal and they can, like, shoot, like, saw blades out of their mouth and, like...
The way they crawl on the ground is a little...
It's... In the Sentai, they are legitimately terrifying, and I almost wonder if, when they were writing this, they took a look at that and said, oh man, we gotta kind of try and do that here, and it just didn't translate. Like that's kind of what it almost feels like to me. It's like that's a possibility.
I wonder if the opposite happened though, Brian. I wonder if they looked at that same footage and went, "Oh man, this is too scary for kids."
Right. That could have been too. Yeah.
The writing in A Zeo Beginning is, how do I put this kindly? Schizophrenic. Like, at times it's really, really good, right? But at other times, you have the Power Rangers finding the Zeo Crystal in the remains of the Command Center after Rito and Goldar teleported away with it.
Yeah, there's a very simple explanation for that.
Is there? Is there?
Please go on.
I'd love to hear it.
If you can find one, let me know.
But what I was trying to get to is, you said earlier, Sasha, that season 3 was quite good at setting up our expectations for Zeo, right? That things are going to change. But at a certain point, they were also incredibly short-sighted at others.
Yep.
Like, just don't have Goldar and Rito take the Zeo crystal away, and you don't have the same problem. Right?
Yeah.
Now, if I remember correctly, though, wasn't their quest to go out there, bomb it, and take the Zeo crystal back?
Yep.
Yeah, which they did.
Sure. Okay.
The question is how do we get from them teleporting away to dropping the
Now,
Zeo
if they
crystal
were running out of the command center and dropped it, that's one thing.
I can almost give you a headcanon where, like, they're running and they have so little
but
time.
They're not running.
Right.
They literally teleport away.
Well, then, what if when they're teleporting, Rito's like, Butterfingers, I guess.
But they literally don't. You see it on screen.
Brian, I'm sorry.
Mid-explosion,
I don't know.
there was a disturbance in the Force, and the Ewoks stole the crystal.
This is what I'm saying is...
Explaining a children's show.
No, it's not even explaining a children's show, right? It's explaining a plot hole that didn't need to exist if you put 3 seconds of thought into your script.
Yeah.
Too much effort.
Like, not to pull the curtains back or anything, right? But, like, when we do the scripted intros for these shows, right, it doesn't take but 3 seconds for one of us to go, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
These are professional writers. They're getting paid for this.
And yet somehow this is not as bad as somehow Palpatine returned, but whatever.
So something that I think we mentioned the first time we recorded this, when this same question came up, which is that we are adults we're looking at this differently than like a 10-year-old looks at this, right?
Well,
so while this is a plot hole, I'm not arguing that. The thing is like, would a kid notice it 3-6 months later?
No.
Probably not.
Except they have been shown earlier in the episode, during Tommy's monologue, that Rito and Goldar teleported away with the Zeo crystal.
So then let me ask you this.
They still didn't pay attention. I ignored Tommy's intro, so the kids probably did too.
Do you think that they just were counting on the fact that, like, you know, the internet wasn't a thing and, like, you know, there had been enough time that had gone between airings that people were like, oh, well, they forgot about that because, you know how, I'm not saying this for Power Rangers, but you know how for certain shows, especially way back in the day, the idea behind writing something was, well, kids are stupid and they don't remember something, so maybe that was what they were doing it. I don't know.
Honestly, $5, they probably just forgot.
Probably that.
Or just, like, didn't think through the rationale. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter, the command center blew up and the whatever. Or, you know, you could even argue that Rito and Goldar couldn't hold on to the Zeo crystal because it is an embodiment of good magic or whatever.
All we needed was a single line when Zordon shows up going, oh, during the explosion, Rito and Goldar were knocked off course and certain things happened, right? Which will explain later why when Rito's like, didn't you used to have wings?
Right.
Like,
yeah, right?
Like, just, it needs a single line. Like, a single line of dialogue.
Well, not only
But instead, what they give us is at the end of part 1, Alpha going, oh my god, Power Rangers, I should have told you right away, making it out like Zorgon's dead. And then the very first thing you hear in part 2 is like, he's fine!
But the dialogue also changes between part 1 and 2. It's completely different.
It's an absolute cheat, and I hate it.
I was going to bring that up because, like, I was talking with Mike about this too. I was like, I really hate how they did that. Well, and, like, the thing was...
And I looked up why they did it, and the reason that they did it was because they released Zeo Beginning Part 1 on Friday, April 20th, 1996.
Nice.
And Part 2 was released the following Monday, the 23rd.
So there was a weekend there.
So you had literally 2 days in between the airings of those 2 episodes.
That doesn't give you an excuse to change the dialogue.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm not saying that it's an excuse to change the dialogue, but it's the reason why they went the route that they went.
Giving a reason is actually giving an excuse for the record.
What we're saying is, it's perfectly fine to have a cliffhanger at the end of episode 1. Right?
This was a crappy cliffhanger.
No, it wasn't. It was a great.
It was actually I agree. It was a great cliffhanger.
The resolution,
because they ignored the cliffhanger.
Sure, look, that's what I meant to say.
If they'd have had the end of season episode 1 be like, "Oh my God, Rangers, I should have told you straight away," and come back and have that same thing lead in at the beginning of episode 2, and be like, "No, I should have told you. He's in a state of quantum flux right now. He'll be back with us in about 20 minutes."
Right, something like that.
And it would have been.
Yeah.
Like, I absolutely hated the way that they handled that. You know, even watching it just today, I was like, that annoys the crap out of me. The fact that, like, he's so sullen and, like, Alpha's just like, oh my God, I don't know how to tell you. And then, like, he's so cheery, like, the next episode, like, oh, he's fine.
When they ask him the exact same question.
They ask him the exact same question. And I'm like, and I started realizing as a kid who watched this back in the 90s, did Power Rangers just gaslight me as a kid?
Yep.
They gaslit the crap out of me as a kid.
They absolutely.
They toy. Oh my God! It's just.
We were just stupid kids back then. Let's just be really honest.
Speaking of things we notice as adults, so Rita and Zed get evicted.
I love the for sale sign.
I know what's coming here.
Rita decides that they need to go somewhere and they don't have anywhere to go, so they're gonna pack up into Serpentera because it finally reached full battery power.
Finally.
And they're gonna go and stay with Rita's dad. And there's a moment where they're like, we need to call Dad. We need to call my daddy so he can let us stay. And so they do the thing to make the call, and she literally goes, Papa, can you hear me? And it's like slightly subtle voice. Meanwhile, poor Zed is like, no, we are not going to live with your father. And it's just hilarious.
Refuse.
And first of all, this is not the first Jewish reference to Rita and Zed we've had, obviously because Zed was voiced by
Robert
Axelrod, who is Jewish himself, and it's kind of hilarious.
A song played at their wedding.
Yeah, they played Hava Nagila at the wedding. Somebody said something about before we recorded this, Brian.
They also in the wedding he stepped on the glass,
and then like Babu and like he's on Serpentera. He's like, oh God, I feel all the clumps. It's like,
so I don't quite know how to feel about it because on the other hand, Haim Saban, who was the producer and the man who created Power Rangers, is Jewish himself. So I don't know. It's sort of, I kind of love it and I kind of hate it at the same time.
Yeah.
In a way, it could be his way of I mean, what's the one thing we hear a lot about, with the media? The Jews run the media. So it could be his way of coming out with the portrayal of, you kind of claim the Jews as the bad guys when maybe we really aren't sometimes.
But Rita and Zed are the bad guys.
I know they are, but
everyone loves them.
Yeah.
I guess.
I don't get it either. I'm very. It does reek a little bit of the Jews being the bad guys.
It's a little iffy. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world. There's far worse examples, but it's a little iffy.
Speaking of taking things far too seriously.
But next thing, we do actually see Master Vile briefly, and he says, sure, come on over, and I guess you have to take your stupid husband too. I'll leave a skeleton key.
Can we talk about how I love the fact that he's leaving a skeleton key under the mat with his supervillain daughter and her supervillain husband
to go to the M51 galaxy.
To go crash at his pad.
And bear in mind, he's conquered the M51 galaxy, right? So it's not like they actually have to stay at his house.
Yeah.
I mean, they need the place to crash to start, and then he can go, well, within this galaxy, you can stay on these planets over here. I'd recommend if you stay on this one all the way on the other side of the galaxy.
It's screeking.
And instead, Lord Zed ends up trading Serpentera in for a Winnebago. It's fine.
It's all fine. There's just flames all over us. We're just gonna grab our hot cup of coffee or hot cocoa and just go. This is fine.
Nothing to see here. Everything's peachy keen.
All right, back to action.
And while Mike is still alive, though not for very much longer, I want to talk about so we have, this, as we head into, we've talked a little bit about, like, the cogs, but we're introduced to the actual Machine Empire, right? We have King Mondo, Queen Machina, Prince Sprocket, and a random
Randomly Scottish.
Yes, randomly Scottish.
Corvus and
Clank.
Clank, yeah.
What do you guys think about these individual figures?
I love the fact that Queen Machina is voiced by Alex Borstein.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I completely.
Lois Griffin herself. And that Prince Sprocket is the same person that did Rita's voice.
wow.
Barbara Goodson.
Barbara Goodson, yeah.
Yep.
And so is Orbis.
Huh. Yeah.
I will say that I have a small, just teeny tiny issue with the very concept of Clank and Orbis.
Go for it.
And I'm going to talk about this in later episodes.
Around and away we go.
But Orbis's entire thing is he's the thing that makes the monsters grow.
Right.
Right? But in order to do so, Clank has to whirl him round his head, throw him at the monster, he then attaches to the monster, talks to the monster for a second, and then shoots a beam at the monster, and then the monster gets big.
Is it just me or is that very unnecessarily complicated?
It's very.
Also, why did the Power Rangers not just shoot Orbis?
They have guns literally on their belt. Like they could totally do it.
Just shoot the round thing, problem solved.
Well, what blues? And we're going forward an episode or two, and I apologize if that's a little off color, but they don't automatically do that. They have to go through this horrific modification in order to be able to do that in episode 3 or 4 or something. I think I reviewed that with Sasha. Spoilers, but it was almost hard to watch. I was like, oh my god, and why was this not something innate? I guess I don't know. It was just it's weird and it's
Also,
complicated.
it's really weird. He's just randomly Scottish.
Yeah. And the others don't really have any particularly discernible accents.
Is
It's
there
just
is there a
Scottish.
Scotland in space? I don't. Is there?
I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, lots of planets have a north.
Cheers.
But it just
I understood
it
that.
just bothers me. This dude is randomly Scottish. There's just this weird relationship with Power Rangers and Scotland.
Yeah.
Right?
It's only happened twice.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And both times, the first time it's the fact that a robot is Scottish and it is treated as the most normal thing in the world. And then the second time in RPM, there's a person who's acting Scottish, and then it's weird.
It took a long time to get here to New Zealand, sir.
All right then.
Just saying.
So this episode gives us some hints at who Mondo and Machina are, where they come from, and what they broke away from to get here.
Right.
Because this episode introduces the United Alliance of Evil.
Another thing that I pointed out the last time we recorded this, and no one had realised.
Well, I rewatched this episode and made a note about it this time, so shove it!
I'm just gonna.
On that note, what do you guys think of this kind of little Easter egg that Zordon drops on us about this United Alliance of Evil?
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom, not now.
It's weird, right? Because it's the first in a stage of foreshadowing, right? Because next season we'll get the message from the future with Blue Centurion. And it's just... I don't know, I don't think they intended it to be as big of a deal as it was. There's no way they were planning the UAE to be the big bad in space at this point.
We're talking about the United Alliance of Evil, not the United Arab Emirates, although coincidentally
right.
they share an acronym.
Wow.
Yeah, I should have been more... should have been a bit more specific. Yeah, the United Alliance of Evil. There's no way that they were planning the reused costume that is Dark Spectre at this point.
You mean Malagor?
Yeah, sure.
Good old Malagor.
Yeah.
I wonder whatever happened came of that guy. You know.
Well, we haven't technically met him yet.
Brian, Mike, any other thoughts on the UAE?
It's kind of fun to. In hindsight, it's fun to be like, oh yeah, wow, they totally name dropped something, which in reality it was probably somebody came up with a really kind of throwaway line. So it is kind of like a throwaway line. The United, Alliance of Evil. It's just, it does seem to me like something that, hey, we need to get from point A to point B on a storyline or give them some backstory. And then later on, it was like, hey, you know what? That's actually kind of a cool idea. Let's do something with it. It doesn't really affect, I think, King Mondo's story necessarily.
Though it does sort of...
But it does...
By saying he broke away from this and still had all the success that he's had.
Sure.
It's another thing that's underpinning how...
Right.
Strong the Machine Empire are.
Yeah, to go back to what we said earlier, it definitely is one of those things that because everybody's talking, they're getting hyped up super crazy, and this is just another one of those things that they can add to their resume, I guess. So I'm okay with it. I'm just happy that if somebody was frustrated that we didn't get to see it on screen, if you kept watching, hey, guess what? We're gonna do something with it later. I was kind of happy with that.
And it should also be noted that after the Rangers get their powers, and they take on the Cogs for the very first time, they take them on as morphed. Whereas in the past with Rita and Zed's putties, the Tangas, they would be able to take them on unmorphed, or in the Tanga's case, morphed into the Ninjetti outfits. Whereas this time they actually have to be fully morphed just to take on the Cogs. Yeah. Which shows that their Cogs are more powerful than Tangas or putties have been. So that's also a major difference right there. And it's also, unfortunately, the demise, at least for this season, of unmorphed fights.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of unmorphed combat.
There's none, I think. I don't think there's any. And while again that does a lot, that goes a long way to again talk about if you're talking about power levels, it's freaking Dragon Ball Z we're talking about or something.
Well, in terms of pacing for this episode, though, if you know the first half, part one, the Rangers are never morphed.
Yeah.
Right, and we also don't have a Zord battle because they don't have their Zeo Zords yet. So it sort of makes sense that this is when they would morph because they just got their powers and this is a new threat. And given that everything, you said, Brian, about how they've hyped this threat up, it makes sense that they wouldn't want to go in unmorphed when they don't have to.
But the thing is that for first time, it's you would, Zordon's always told them you don't escalate the battle.
Right.
But you could argue that the battle's already escalated because you have a higher bad guy.
Yeah. Because there's so much crap going on. And it's okay, fine. My problem with this, and we can talk about this later on, hint, hint, but my problem with this is that you are told, point blank, that the Zeo powers exponentially gain power. So, sure, it makes sense initially that, we need to be morphed, but then, wouldn't, if that's the way that it works, then later on in certain episodes, they would be able to fight the Cogs without having to morph?
But that goes back to the original point that Zordon's ultimate monocle rule of being a ranger, of never escalating the fight, is sort of prevents them, I think, to some extent, of being proactive. Right? They have massive Zords. They can just go and destroy Rita's palace on the moon and save the world, but no, we can't escalate the fight.
Do you know what just popped in my head when you said that?
Nostalgia critic?
No. We're the Avengers, not the pre-Avengers.
I have the one in my head where it was a guy with the glasses. He reviewed the Turbo movie,
right,
which we'll get to eventually.
Doug Walker.
And he pretty much was I'm just going to summon the Zords right now and just squash him. It's they did a
Why did you do that? Because it's why not?
So
do unto others as they would do unto you, but do it first.
There you go.
Pretty much, yeah.
Live to morph another day.
There's, I think, a few other little things that we can talk about, but one sort of last big question I had with you guys is, what are your thoughts on Goldar and Rito's upcoming misadventure?
Amnesia's a hell of a drug.
I love me some Rito Repulso. He is my boy. I love him.
Yeah, we've actually seen him hang out with Rito from time to time. Like, they'll be at the...
And Rito survived the Z-Wave how?
You don't want to know the answer to that question.
It's very simple explanation.
I guess in the same way that Rita and Zed can have a son later, but
Yeah.
ooh,
It's been around for 10,000 years.
details.
Anyway, I love me some Rito Repulso. I love me some Vulcan Skull. This arc does no one any favors.
No.
Agreed.
Like, when they meet up, and yes, there's that really fun moment of Vulcan Skull and Rito and Goldar just absolutely losing their brains, running around the inside of a garage.
Slapstick.
Right? But then Vulcan Skull then turning them into their slaves. It's the start of what I will talk about quite a lot this season, which is a regression of the characters of Vulcan Skull.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Because at the end of season 3, they're graduating from the Junior Police Academy. The Rangers are proud of them. And then just in this season, it's just like, oh no, they're back to being doofuses and the Rangers are their antagonists again.
Can we just blame it on Lieutenant Stone?
Which
Yes.
I was going to bring up the question, and we can talk about it when we later in the season. But could Lieutenant Stone possibly be the worst mentor of all mentors?
Yeah.
He's not even a mentor, though.
Technically, he is.
He's a Vulcan Skull.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like we go on, like, and I remember when we did that big article for Musings for the Grid, and where we talk about mentors, and it's like we always looked at it from the Power Ranger perspective of mentors, but we never looked at it from other aspects, like with Bulk and Skull. Like, technically, in a way, you can look at Ernie as a mentor in a way. You can look at, look at all the community stuff that he does, and he always tries to do good and tries to be a good mentor to others.
I will say this,
but then you have Lieutenant Stone, who's like the complete opposite of Ernie,
who subsequently takes over his juice bar.
Yeah.
What I will say about Ernie is this: I love Ernie to death, and this is just an aside. I would absolutely go to him for like any kind of advice involving like, hey, I'm feeling kind of bad about myself, or what can I do to, like, he's a very chicken soup for the soul kind of guy. I would never go to him for financial support.
Yeah.
Ever.
No.
Well, what do I do with this? Oh, just give it away. It's like, what? No. What are you talking?
To get back to your
Anyways.
point,
Yes, please.
I don't like this arc that's coming up. I do find it quite funny that they eventually end up hiring the detective agency to find Rita and Zed. I find that quite funny, but all the stuff in between is just...
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I liked about it in this initial, like this one episode where they run into each other and they get all freaked out, is like, Bulk and Skull have the idea of like, okay, you know what? We can kind of turn the tables on you guys because you've tortured us all these years at this point.
But I don't think that's what's going on in their head.
I think for the one moment right off the bat, yeah. But then as it goes on, it gets lost.
I can see both of your points on that, because I can absolutely, and I'm not gonna, okay, let's go ahead and put aside the fact that, like, the whole memory thing that happened with the alien, let's just not even bring that up. Goldar and Rito, especially Goldar, has been leading this charge in Angel Grove since 93 at this point.
Yeah.
And you're telling me Bulk and Skull have not once put it in the back of their head, oh, that's one of the guys that was leading the putties against us and was trying to take over the world. I can totally see his point here on that, just a little bit. But
I'm not saying they haven't clocked that Goldar's one of the leaders.
Right.
What I'm saying is the way that it is presented is not that they're like, this is revenge for you being kind of a dick.
Right.
It's that, like, we want slaves.
And
Yeah.
that's where the problem is, and that's where
Yeah.
your point stands as well.
And
it's
not only that, but can I also point out
bad writing. It's really bad writing.
Can I also point out the fact that Goldar is only in Jew Ranger in the Sentai. Rito
Yeah.
appears in what's the one that is
Kaku Ranger.
Kaku Ranger, and that we also don't see Rito's human counterpart, which is actually a badass.
He's a really cool dude.
Yeah, like
Go watch Kaku Ranger sometime.
Yeah,
it's really
like-
awesome.
like-
Anyway, back to Power Rangers.
Here's-
Yeah.
Please.
Well, also it's weird that like there's 4 Sentai that we're kind of putting into this one episode, but whatever. Anyways,
There is a moment I really want to talk about.
what's that?
It's when the Rangers are getting their powers.
Yes.
And Zordon's like, Rocky, you will become Zeo Ranger 3 Blue. They cut to Billy for a moment. And he just like...
and Alpha doing the pat on the back.
And Alpha just pats him on the shoulder, and it's super sad.
Like everything Billy related this season honestly kind of hurts. And not kind of, it just hurts.
I've watched this episode as a kid, and I've watched it multiple times as an adult, and every time I watch it, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart. Because that should be it. I like... And make all the jokes you want to about, like, Rocky and whatever, but it's just seeing Billy, like, knowing the sacrifice he's making, it hurts.
Yeah, it's not like Rocky lasted that much longer after this season either.
Yeah, he kind of got $1 Million Babied, but whatever.
I might voice a slightly unpopular opinion here,
Ooh.
but I'm kind of glad Billy isn't a Ranger anymore.
Yeah?
Like, there's a certain point where Billy's seen Jason, Trini, and Zach come and go, and he's seen Tommy lose his powers and gain his powers, and lose his powers and gain his powers, and he's seen Kim leave. At a certain point, that's got to
Weigh on you.
attrition your ability to be this at least at the forefront of the battle against evil, right? So instead, Billy's getting ready to transition into a role he's better suited for.
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah, it sucks that Billy's not a Ranger, sure. But I also like the fact that, and again, anyone but Tanya, I quite like the fact that Billy's just like, I'm ready to move into a new phase
Right.
of this fight.
Well, it kind of goes back to that thing I said earlier in this episode where it's like maybe it's that one thing we don't see because they don't show it on the show, but because Billy does stay behind when the others do the Zeo quest when they're still as kids, that Zordon maybe had that conversation with him and kind of
Sure.
Look, dude, I'm not going to sit here and...
theorize.
How do I put this? And I'm sure I've said this a bunch on the show, that if it ain't on the TV, I'm not buying it.
Fair enough.
Right? Like, you could... They leave us as fans to
Make our own theories on it.
Speculate.
to headcanon, to explain so many things. I'm just done. Just, yes, Billy... I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
That being said, though, I think you bring up a good point, but my issue is if the Rangers return to the command center and maybe Zordon connection, whatever, didn't work and Zordon was gone,
Yeah.
I feel like, because Zordon does move on, right? So I feel like putting Billy in that position with having the responsibility on like the tech side, but also to fill in Zordon's shoes would have been really interesting because honestly, I can't really remember writing any notes other than Zordon being useless.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point. It's still...
Instead, he leaves and we end up with a weird Mr. Miyagi wannabe.
Anyway, but I think, Billy, from where you're coming from, I understand it. but we are sort of losing the last of the original 5
Right,
is sort of
but
stepping
that
down.
feels right for Zeo.
Sure.
Because this is the big. And like it or not, right? This is the biggest risk Power Rangers ever took. Ever. They stepped away from a formula they knew was winning. They changed the format. They had no idea how people were going to react. None of it. And it's almost like with Billy stepping away from being an active ranger, it's putting Mighty Morphin Seasons 1, 2, and 3 behind the franchise and moving into the future.
And I kind of like that. I absolutely see that point. What was I going to say?
I probably brought this conversation down.
No,
That's
you're
okay,
fine.
'cause
No. I was going to say something too about Billy, because it does feel like when he does step down, like Ben mentioned, it does feel like the end of an era. But then, like as we were just talking just now, I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, in reality, Billy was never the biggest fighter.
Yep.
And who was the one ranger that was always staying behind to help Alpha with, like, hey, we got some technobabble that we have to, like,
Billy.
use to, like, here's the thing that we need to, get the episode finalized.
Yep.
Billy was always the one back at the command center.
And who better to replace him than a 6-year-old girl from the Serengeti who's rapidly aged 10 years and doesn't know what books are.
I have a question. There's a line to kind of move it a little bit away from this, but when Billy gives up his powers, Catherine says something like, "You've done so much for us." And I'm just trying to figure out, how long has Cap been a ranger at this point?
Half a season?
Okay, so I guess that's long enough to know all of the stuff that Billy has done for
I
us.
think the us she's saying are the Power Rangers in general. It's more of a royal we.
I figured as much. I just thought it was a weird line.
I'm guessing Tommy would have told her
to
some
be
of the things.
honest, Billy has done a lot.
He
for them.
has. He built a flying car.
He did all the stuff with making himself an adult in the Alien Ranger saga and all of that. So.
He built a lot of different devices that we've seen that help the Rangers either build themselves back up from whatever Rita and Zed threw at them to a new device that solves a problem or defeats a monster or whatever. So it does sort of make sense that in his natural evolution, Billy eventually would step down as a Ranger to focus more on that tech side. And we know, we'll see later on, that everything that he does with the Zords and whatnot.
Before we move on, I do want to say one thing, too, that I really, really liked. Because Billy gives the speech to everybody about how he's stepping down, and Zordon kind of follows up on what he says, and he says something to the effect of, when the Rangers were down and out, you stepped up as a leader.
Yeah.
You stepped up as a leader, and you helped us, and he held them together and gave him that acknowledgement, and I think at that point, like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, you have won the award, sir. Like, you can step down. Yeah, I don't know. It was just a nice moment. I really liked it.
Yeah.
So y'all, those are kind of the questions that I had. I think we covered a good chunk of this 2-parter. And obviously there's, other episodes for our listeners to soon gravitate towards. But is there anything else about this 2-parter that you wanted to add that we didn't get to?
Let me check my notes. No, it's never a Ranger.
Adam does say at the end, I think, once a Ranger, always a Ranger. And I don't know how, we've heard that before, right?
Tommy says that.
No, Adam says it.
No.
What? I had it written that Adam says it. Did I write it down wrong? Dang it.
And
Did Adam even say anything in these?
He doesn't say much in these episodes.
Yeah.
Once a Ranger, always a Ranger is the tagline in Overdrive for the
I know.
for the two-part episode. And we've heard it with like Kim and all that.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I want to talk about is, like I said, this was a very brave move by the Power Rangers franchise. They got rid of their long-running beloved villains. They got rid of the original suits. They got rid of the Zords. They got rid of the command center. They got rid of the last original Ranger. It is worth noting how much of a risk the franchise was taking, and they had no idea how it was going to be received.
But there's one constant.
If you say Tommy, I'm going to reach over there and slap you.
Unfortunately, that is the answer, though.
I would like you to kindly run over here and headbutt my fist as hard as you can.
Let's think of all of the things I can throw at Mike right now for my position. Should I start with the marker, the screwdriver, the notepad?
There's a lot of expensive.
There's a lot of things I can.
Hammer.
Oh God!
Is it within reaching distance? I don't see a hammer.
Sword's up there.
I'm
Anyway,
too short.
What band did the song "Hammer Smash Face"? Was it Cannibal Corpse? I can't remember. Anyways, that's on.
I think that sounds like a good wrapping up point. Honestly.
All right. In that
People wanting
case,
to do violence to me?
dear listeners, I think we're going to start this time with Brian and have him tell us about his social medias.
Yes, absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at OneDrunkGeek. You can also find me on TikTok at Blue Ranger BRI, even though I am the Pink Ranger for this season. You can also find me at CastwaveStudios.com doing the One Drunk Geek Beer Show, as well as all the other fine shows by friend of the studio, good lord, CastwaveStudios.com. And check me out.
Well done. Mr. Ben Taylor, where can we find you on the social medias?
You can find me on Twitter
At Bob T. Goldfish.
You can find me doing video games and other assorted streaming over at
Twitch.tv/321_TV.
You can also find the sister show to Voices from the Grid, Awesome Mania, which is hosted by myself, Michael Lindenbaum, and our good friend Matthew Carroll, which is a wrestling pay-per-view watch-along podcast. You can find that over at
txhdhockey.com and click on X75 Productions, and it's actually one of the first shows on the menu.
Because it's alphabetical or something.
I think I did it by
You will
importance.
also be able to see Mike and I. This won't come out in time, but I do want to say that you may be able to go and find the archives of the appearance that Mike and I are going to be doing at Wilkes Comic Con coming up soon. Mr. Michael.
Did you just take the line away from Sasha?
No, I'm just feeding you because I'm
okay.
talking about you.
But
It's a natural segue, dude. That's what people want.
Besides, I don't care where the people can find you
I'll
on
teach you
social
the
media.
podcast on that.
And you can find me on Twitter at the Lindenbaum75, Facebook at facebook.com/X75Productions, Twitch at twitch.tv/TheMichaelX75, and of course everything is on the website at txhdhockey.com/X75Productions.
And of course, you can find me, myself, and I over on Twitter at Geeky Kaplan. That is Kaplan with a K after the greatest superhero in Marvel Comics, Billy Kaplan. Fight me. And you can find me over usually complaining about Jewish representation and reviewing Miss Marvel. Alright, I'm gonna pause you for a second because as I was doing my Twitter thing, Ben was mouthing along the words. It was the funniest thing ever. But anyway, you can find me on Tumblr. I'm the only one of these nerds on Tumblr, for better or worse, over on geekgirl101.tumblr.com. And of course, you can find us on Twitter and on Spotify. We are Voices from the Grid, and on Twitter at VFTG_PR. I know it was said, but it bears thinking again. So with that, Mr. Ben Taylor, take us out.
Yes, I was mimicking Sasha there. And yes, we are in a new season of Voices from the Grid and a new season of Power Rangers.
Dun dun dun!
For the second time this season. Thanks, Mike. But we will end, as we always do in any podcast that I'm involved with, except for the one episode that will be coming up later this season. It's actually forgot.
What time?
You do know I actually have just a snippet of your thing, and I can just edit it in there.
Now we have to leave it out.
It's funnier that way.
We'll leave you as I always do by saying, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. In the words of the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, be excellent to each other. Party on, non-gender specific honorifics.
And until our next more phenomenal episode, be sure to grab your Zeonizers and your Zeo crystals.
Can someone get him a doctor?
In one way or the other, I am going to survive the season. So may the power protect me and protect you.
We had this whole outro planned. This is so much funnier.